So I served in 4 areas, and I have special people in every one of my areas, but I have specific people in every area. But the first one that's probably the closest to me is in my second area, which is called baños. And no, it doesn't mean, well, yes, it means bathrooms, but here it actually means fountains. The actual name of the city is Baños de Agua Santa, so it's fountains of holy water. That is a very, very hard area. More so because it's a very small town, and it's a very high tourist location, and so there's lots of tourists that come through there. But because it's such a little town, there's probably only, I don't know, I want to say maybe 5,000 people in the actual town itself. There's a lot of little communities surrounding it, but the town itself, there's probably only about 5,000 people. And in addition to that, in this tiny town, there's probably, I want to say there was at least 15 churches. I remember me and my companion counting them one day, and it made things really challenging because almost everybody you ran into have either heard of you or knows somebody who is a member or anything and everything. The Catholic Church is very large and very strong in Ecuador, and so you run into a lot of opposition in that area, in that aspect by itself. And I feel like I ran into it more so in Baños too, because they have their own virgin, Mary, and so we'd get a lot of the opposition in regards to that, because they'd always bring up Mary in every conversation that we had with people, and so just be prepared for that as well. But so this town, 15 churches in probably, I don't know, maybe a 5-mile radius of each other, and I'd been there for probably roughly like a week and a half with my companion, and the weather had been beautiful, and we wake up this one morning and it was downpouring. And so we got up, we got ready, we went through studies and all that fun stuff, and we left for the day. And both of us were very optimistic. We said our prayer, we had a companionship prayer before we left, and we both felt very, very optimistic about this day. And so we set off. We had an area of the city that we were determined we were going to contact every door in that area, and so we set off to go that direction, which included having to climb a hill to get there. And so we knocked on, I don't know how many doors, but we were getting nowhere. Either people weren't answering, or they'd answer, and the second we'd introduce ourselves, they'd be like, nope, and they'd slam the door in our face. And so we were kind of losing our optimism, and we were kind of getting discouraged. And we were coming back down the hill, and we were kind of, we had knocked on a door, we had gotten nothing. We crossed the street, we went down more on the hill, we knocked on a door, and had a little tiny dog come running out after us. That was fun. And we were gonna keep going, we didn't get anything there either, and we were gonna keep going down the hill, and my companion was like, I feel like we should go back up to that street, because there was a house right on the corner. And so we're like, okay. So we went back up, and there was a big gate, like a chain link fence gate right there. And there was a young girl in the patio area. She looked like she was probably 10, 11. And so we called out to her, and we kind of introduced her. We kind of talked to her for a second, and we're like, hey, is your mom home? And she's like, maybe I'll go check, which is a typical answer that you also get. And so as she turned to go inside, she slipped, and she fell like right into a puddle of water. And both of me and my companion were like, "Oh, are you okay?" and whatnot. But because of all the commotion, and she just started laughing, and so we're like, "Okay, apparently she's okay." And all the commotion, it caused her mom to come outside, and so we started talking to her mom. And it was the familia, the Aymara family, and this mom is a hero and a I don't know, spiritual giant in my eyes, I guess you could say. When we met her, she was 28, and she had 5 kids. She was a single mom. The daughter was the oldest, so she had 5 kids, all underneath the age of 11. And the youngest was about 6 or 7 months old. And so this family became very, very special to me and my companion. And we taught them, and the daughter, Estefania, she was gung-ho about reading the Book of Mormon. We would come every lesson. She had read it. She could tell us exactly what the reading was about, the assigned reading and whatnot. And there was multiple times where she was like, "I know that this book is true." She was most definitely the first person in the family that was like, "Yeah, I know it." And we're like, "Oh, that's awesome." And so we continued teaching them. We invited them to be baptized, and Estefania was like, "No, I don't want to be baptized." And we're like, "Wait, why?" You know it's true, like, why? And she explained she was preparing to be baptized in another church, and she had a lot of friends in that church, and she's like, "No, I'm going with them." And so we talked to her to find out how we could help, what's going on, tried to get her to know kids of her age in the branch. And she came to church many times, but in the end, she still was like, "Nope, don't want anything to do with it." And I was like, okay. But her mom and her brother, they were still good, and they were like, "No, we want to be baptized." And we're like, okay. And the day of the baptism, it was Mother's Day weekend. And so me and my companion had we're talking with our parents. So we made plans with the family to make sure that we're like, "You need to be at the church at this time, and you need us to come by and pick you up," and all of that. And she was like, "No, we'll be there." And I was like, okay. So me and my companion, we went, because we met up with her before, and then before we went to talk with our families. And so then we went and we called our families, and we talked with our families, and then we went down to the church, because for the baptism. And we got to the church, and the elders were there, that were going to perform the baptism. And they're like, "Where are they? Where's the family?" And we're like, "Wait, they were supposed to be here already," because we were kind of running behind. And they're like, "Well, they're not here, obviously." And this family didn't have a phone, so there wasn't a way we could just call them. You had to go to their house to get them, because they were very, very poor, to contact them. And so the district leader and his companion, they're like, "Okay, we'll go and get them." So they called down they got a taxi, and they drove up there, and they got her and her family, and they brought them back to the church. And then the baptism occurred. Estefania was there, but she supported her mom and her brother, but she's like, "No, I don't want to get baptized." And we're like, okay. And so after the baptism, we were meeting with them, because they and asking how things were. And Mom, she told us that she was ready to run away the night of her baptism. that she's like, your sisters, you came, you met with me before on that Saturday, and I was gung-ho and I was ready to get baptized, and then you guys left, and as the time got closer, I had every motivation to go out my gate and walk in the opposite direction of the church, because she was kind of just up the street a ways, but she was straight up the street from the church. And so she's like, I was going to walk the other direction and basically just hide from you. And she's like, I walked out of my bedroom, because in their house there was 4 different rooms, but they were all separated, and so you had to walk into the courtyard to go into every room. And so she's like, I walked out of my bedroom and I was ready to walk out that gate, and then I decided, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need to get something out of the kitchen. And she has no idea why she went into the kitchen, but the second she walked, like, she'd been in the kitchen for a couple minutes when she heard a knock on the gate, and it was the elders. And she knows that she was supposed to go to the kitchen, because she would have not been there if she hadn't. She would have been gone, and they wouldn't have been able to track her down. But since her baptism, she has been a very stalwart member and has been very involved in the branch. And I unfortunately don't get to contact her very often, but I'm able to stay in contact with people from the branch.